Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Ryan and January Donovan, one of the most amazing couples I've ever met in my life. And I'm super honored to be able to introduce you to them today if you haven't met them yet. Um, it's good to have you. Thank you for making time.
We are excited to be here. I love it. Usually I get to teach by myself, and I get to be with my better half. So it's exciting.
No, it's such a joy being here with you, Lucy. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. So I've asked my audience what their three biggest challenges are right now, and marriage is one of the top three, without a doubt. Um, and so the reason I wanted to invite you on is that you guys are possibly the most amazing marriage I've ever seen. You're so in love with each other. I hear when you're angry with each other. You really have a dream marriage. And I've learned through learning with January, studying with January, that's not by accident. It's actually by design. So
Yeah.
January, would you mind sharing a little bit about your experience with marriage growing up and then what you decided to do about it?
Yeah, great question. So my idea of a beautiful marriage was sort of you were together. My parents, uh, you know, I wouldn't say they like being with each other. Let's just put it that way. And so that was my idea of a beautiful marriage. And so I didn't have a lot of role models. However, my parents' best friend had a beautiful marriage. They loved being with each other, and they just looked forward to being with each other. But I didn't necessarily have the insight, and so that was sort of a side thing that I had in my mind. But I always just thought marriage was hard, and that was also compounded when with my faith, where you were always taught marriage is hard, marriage is hard, marriage is hard. And it was sort of this like idea that marriage is hard. So that was my experience with marriage, and then my 18 when I was 18 or 19 years old, I met a couple that changed and revolutionized really my mindset on marriage. They had three children, they were a speaker, they were a missionary family, and he was so in love with her. I could not wrap my mind around it. I was like, how do you talk about your wife like you're smiling? Like I just had never heard it. And then his parents were also her parents were also missionaries, and they just like the way they looked at each other. I just was like, there's no way that's real. And I remember talking to her and befriended her because I was so enamored by the fact that that was what I wanted deep down in my heart, but I had no idea it was possible. I asked her, I said, can I follow you around? I just want to study your marriage. This was like at 19, 18 years old. And I remember one time I said,
January,
yes,
will you say that again? Can I follow you around? What was the second part of that?
I went to go on a mission trip with them. I said, I just wanted to study your marriage. I don't think I was sort of explicit, like I want to follow you around, but I just said I offered my service for free to babysit their kids just so I could study their marriage. For some reason, there was a grace and insight there for me. I was just so drawn to it. It was beauty. Beauty draw me. And so I remember looking at her. I said, at Dida, her name was Dida. And she said, how do you have a love like that? And I remember she has this laugh, and her mother had the same laugh. We just saw them recently. And she laughed this beautiful laughter. And she's like, oh, you need to be that kind of woman. I was like, what's that kind of woman? And so
Right.
I think I spent so much of my years because of the beauty it was sort of two extremes. It was sort of like understanding of marriage was hard to this beautiful marriage that I didn't think was possible. And I spent really most of those after that becoming the woman I ought to be to achieve that kind of love that I wanted. And so it was work. I cried many tears. And so that was my experience of marriage, and really not giving up on what I knew was possible, which was the role model that I had.
Wow.
Yeah. They
Wow.
were powerful testimony. They changed my life, the trajectory of my life.
And then you took it and you decided, I'm going to change me because I'm
Yeah.
having these marriage.
Yeah. And I think our wounds often do that. What I mean by that is that I was hungering because I never saw it. And I saw the pain that my parents went through. I saw adultery in my family, like extended family. And so I think that gave me, I would say, the desire to say, I just want what they have. But I don't know if I would have wanted as much if I didn't see that was possible. And so it gave me the fuel to say, I'm not settling, I'm not settling. But it took like a good 10 years for me to meet Ryan. I had to wrestle with who I was and who I wasn't, to be honest. And
And that
that
pattern came up again, right? When you met with another director that served you where you had to become
Yeah.
that woman,
Yeah.
right?
My spiritual director at that point, and I was like, "Oh, I want this kind of marriage. I want this kind of guy. That write your dream guy." And so I was like, "Okay, write a laundry list of this kind of man that you want." And so I did. And I remember I was so giddy, like a child wanted to meet with this, my mentor, and he never even looked at the paper. And he said, "Jenna, what is love?" And I said, "Love and I didn't have really any words, but he said, "Love is a gift. So before have this kind of man, you need to first be this woman. So be this woman that you want to. And so I think most couples don't have that mentorship, which is why we do what we do in the women's school. Most of us have been deprived of the necessary training and preparation. And so I've used that ache and pain and gratitude that I have in my marriage to really kind of awaken couples. It's possible, and even if you didn't have it, you can still have it. I've seen thousands and thousands of, I would say, examples in my life just doing this work with marriage that were falling apart and they just did the work.
Thank you. I want to dig back into the programs here in a minute, but first I want to hear Ryan's side. Ryan, I've heard little tidbits that January shares in her trainings, but will you tell me, how do you approach marriage? How do you approach your relationship with January?
What a great question. And I think January just said the word, and it really just rings true into how I view our marriage. Is it's a gift, right? And that's even from day one. Like even some of my buddies, like, man, you really outkicked your coverage with finding this gem right here. And so, like, ever since the beginning of meeting January, I always felt like, man, I was so lucky to have her. So that, taking that mentality forward and just really seeing the gift that our Lord has blessed me with in January, it makes me take that perception into our marriage in terms of how I view everything. So when it comes to, like, on the daily basis, like, or wanting to make sure I care for that gift or nurture her, I want to take her out on dates. I want to make her feel special and make her feel attractive because I'm just so lucky, So if I have that viewpoint into everything, it just makes it so much sweeter for me and for her, for our relationship. So yeah, that's the approach I have. It's really simple. I'm a very simple person, but it's just like she's a gift and I want to treat her that way. And even to the point where I retired my business of doing real estate to bringing her gift out into the world because I love her so much. And I was just meeting with one of my buddies and I was just sharing this with him. I was like, man, I know January has such a gift and a passion to serve women. I can see it, and I just want to help her get to the world stage, like, with my whole heart, and I'm willing to sacrifice what I was doing before because I can see that in her, and it's like my mission to bring it out too. So anyway, it's like the gift. I keep reiterating that, but comes full circle in multiple facets.
But he sees it in me when I don't see it in myself, and I think I just want to say something. When I met Ryan, he was very disciplined already. He had taken on to himself, take responsibility in his habits and is very intentional. And I think that was a very special gift for me because I saw a man who was a man of his word, who was very committed, who followed through, who was very persistent. He developed it intentionally. And I think his ability to do that when we came into our marriage made a lot of things really seamless. That's the right word. Not that you don't have bumps on the road,
Yeah.
but the willingness to grow and the development of your skills and
I think
growing
that's a
together.
key. That's a key. Like, with the knowing that I have this gift, I'm not perfect. There's a lot of things that I need to improve and, like, communication skill, but it's like that's something that I need to do, even though I don't necessarily want to do it. Right? I do what I don't want to do when I don't want to do it. Um, because that's, it forces me to want to, just to keep improving, to be a better version of myself, to just sweeten our marriage.
But because he's a man of his word, he does do it. So you see how he like compounds all these little things that, it's little things, yeah, it's been 18 years and it does get better. And I think that every couple can, I don't think it's only available for me and Ryan. I think you choose your heart, the heart of not being able to grow together or the heart of, growing together.
Doing the work to,
Doing the work
like
to-
you said in the beginning, like, how do we do it by design? I mean, that's actually the name of the course we put together for couples, is Marriage by Design, not by default. So it's like a marriage by design course where we are very intentional. Like, that's the word of, okay, what do we need to do to keep improving? Faith is at the forefront. It's always at the top and center for us personally in our marriage. Like, that's the key element number one. but not just a couple that's, praying together and staying together. It's a couple that's growing together, is thriving together, right? So like that's a key element of what we do.
Thank you. So I think you kind of implied the answer to this question already, but I wanted to go back. When you say you see January as a gift and your relationship as a gift, is that always automatic or does it sometimes take work? Because there are definitely times that I see my husband as a gift and sometimes that it's a little harder.
Yeah.
That's probably
I mean,
normal.
I would say there's definitely moments where you have to really almost like forcefully find the good in situations, right? So that's the mentality I chose to adapt a long time ago, which is like, even if it's a challenging moment or situation or a time where you're like, okay, I don't really want to hear that right now or deal with that part of the conversation. I still take the mindset of going about, okay, what's the good I can find here, and what can I actually control in this situation? So it's an intentional choice. It's not something that always comes easily. Hopefully that
It's a choice. Yeah.
answered your
I'm just
question.
trying to think. I think, like in every couple, we have challenging conversations and moments. But what I think comes out is that at the end of the day, because Ryan is growing, I still, it's, he's still very attractive to me. I'm still very inspired by who he is. And so when I could be frustrated about something, like I still, at the end of the day, I'm able to say, oh, but I really like him and I really am inspired by who he is and he's really growing and he's not the same man that I am that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, a year ago, because he is growing. And I think it when in the midst of your challenging moments, you're still drawn to them. They're still inspiring you, and I think that makes a huge difference. I
Thank
still
you.
like them.
Thank you for sharing that part. I think that's for me that's helpful to hear clarified a little bit. So January, you started the Women's School to train women formally in 2019, and you've reached like tens of thousands of women in over 40 countries
Yes.
in 5 years.
Yes. Yeah, it grew, I think, pretty fast, but I think there's just really a hunger for truth, for beauty, for goodness. That's why I think it just grew. I think that the what we offer in the school for women is a practical, integrated application and how to do this in every arena of your life, especially in your marriage. Is that we just give them the tools. And because it's integrated, because your marriage impacts your family life, your family impacts your career impacts your health. And I think that's what I didn't see in the marketplace was an integrated understanding of the whole person and the whole woman. And that was what I was given by my mentor, that you can't just try to fix your marriage without fixing your health or your mental
Mm,
health or
mm,
your spiritual health or your wealth. A lot of the marriage, 50% of the divorce comes from financial challenges. And so you have to really look at I think that piece of the woman's school I realized was so important. But the second piece is that you don't achieve a great marriage unless you're growing, or you don't achieve anything great in your life unless you're growing. So the woman's school really is a training school that allows you to achieve the life that you deeply desire and want. Whether it's a beautiful marriage, whether it's a great health, you need tools. And that's really the vision for us is to become a the training school that teaches women how to live out every arena of their life. And I just believe in that. I've seen the testimonies and the fruits of it.
So my life has been changed by that work profoundly. And I know many of my students as well. And then Ryan, you already mentioned it, but you left your life's work that you were very successful at to come join January on this team. You helped get the man school started, the wholeness coaching school grew, and then the couples school, I think was the last part to come out. Oh, the women's school in Espanol was an important piece, I think. And then the couples school has been the most recent. Can you explain what you see going on if we need to go back to it in marriage in the broader culture and why you decided to do the couple school?
Yeah, I think what we saw, to not to belabor the point, but just the fact of like just the principle in life is growth, right? Growth or death, right? There's no stagnation. And
Mm,
so I think sometimes people go into marriage and they just want to, and they think that it's just going to continue um without doing anything. And so we just saw that as a missing ingredient, and we weren't even planning on doing anything with couples. It just kind of came about last minute. and we saw the need, and we could see it in just couples that we get to deal with on a number of different occasions. And we had um one of our friends from many years ago came to our house, and he's still single, and we're like, whoa, what gives, Ryan, right? When um and like, why are
Why are
you
you
not,
still single?
why are you still single at this phase? And he's like, well, besides you guys, I haven't really found any other examples of something worth pursuing. And that was really sad for us to be like, wow, is it really that rare where either relationships or marriages or family life is that poor of an example for others to not want to pursue it. And that's a growing trend too. Like, she studies more of the statistics and facts now, but more people are choosing to not
Get married
get married.
because of fear. I can answer that with greater conviction. What I have seen in the forefront is that the marriage actually becomes the mental prison for a lot of women and men. And so you go into marriage assuming you will have your deepest desires fulfilled, only to wake up every single day feeling as though you are living in a prison in your own life. And unfortunately, I don't really see that it's the woman's fault when women are never trained how to live their life in every part of their life. And so,
And it's not the spouse's fault either.
correct. And so I think both the couples are undertrained. Let me just give you an example. We never got training on how to dream as a couple together, practically. We were sort of trained in our faith, how to sort of this idea of dying to each other and helping each other. But how do you live that without hope? Because dreaming as a couple together produces hope. It produces this idea that you're living this adventure, that life gets better every single day. And yet, couples are not trained to dream. You don't go to school for boundaries. You don't go to school for decision making, for planning, for a rhythm of life, to how do you complement each other. These are non negotiable skill set that couples need, not just to thrive, but to survive. And so we go in with this deep, gaping desire to that I think God has placed in our heart to be, fully nourished in our marriage. Because we don't have the skills, not a fault of our own, it becomes then sort of like a place we just kind of go to, check a box, and then that's it. But compounding that, there's no role models of couples because most couples are struggling. I was just blessed, Lucy, that I saw those two couples, but then I just saw more and more with my eyes, my reticular activating system, at work. And I thought, wait a minute, I won't compromise because I saw that. But more importantly, I think that we've been told marriage is hard. We are sold that it's supposed to be a difficult life to be married. And so we accept it. No training, no role models, and from the pulpit, it's hard, offer it up. It's supposed to be why are we not sold a beautiful marriage? Why don't we say marriage is so beautiful, you cannot not do it? And this is how you make it beautiful. It's so beautiful that you just want to be in that marriage life, and it's so inspiring that it's so full of life, you want to be married. I think the false, I would say false role models and false understanding of people that are teaching married life without skills are the ones that are actually preaching about how hard marriage is.
And that, can I add something?
Yeah, please.
And that doesn't mean that the marriage is void of suffering. That's not what we're saying at all. Like, it's a different form of suffering. Instead of suffering in the relationship together, it's the suffering of growing and developing the skill and saying, oh man, dying to yourself, like that, of like what you need to change and the humility you need to bring into the relationship in order to change. Yeah, a lot of times I stick my foot in my mouth. So yeah, very humbling moments.
Okay, so let me give you an example. Like if you're a couple and you're waking up as part of your prayer, you eat, you cook food, but also you're studying together. Like how different would your marriage be if you're learning conversation skills, connection skills, routine, decision making, like, and then you come together more whole, equipped. I mean, then the marriage blossoms. But you come together and you're both depleted, wanting to have something beautiful. You've been lied to, and it's not your fault. That's why I tell couples, I'm like, who taught you? Before you blame and shame yourself, who showed you how? And the answer is no one. That's where we are.
All right, show us how. So what have you seen? So what have you seen through couples, seen or heard from couples who've already been through the mastermind, through the class?
I mean, we just got back from so we had a 6 class plus mastermind. experience with couples, and that culminated with like a cruise at the end of it. And so we just spent time with these couples and seeing the impact firsthand. And
It's amazing.
I mean, if anything, it's given us so much more fuel to be like, oh man, this is maybe something that our Lord is calling us to do more of, because just to see the impact of the wives or spouses that were trying to get their other spouse to do this, and it was a struggle just to get them to say yes to like step into the class, to see the joy and the tears of being shed, and the emotions of new experiences with each other, going deeper. And what they had to say after that was just so
Yeah.
powerful.
I think two things. The couples mastermind that we offer, it's very simple. It's 6 classes and 6 masterminds. And the reason why I think it's that is because it's just kind of whets your palate and gives you an alignment as a couple. It helps you understand some of the big frameworks. And some of the frameworks that we talk about is, how do you dream together as a couple? Like, how do you cast a vision for every part of your life? And how do you cast a vision for your health? How do you cast a vision for your friendship? How do you cast a vision for your dream home? How do you cast a vision for your family life? So it's a huge thing that I see, is that couples that did not even understand studying the desires of your heart, dreaming, now all of a sudden dreaming and designing their life together. Like, how powerful is that? Which means that they're not going to be stuck. They're going to be able to have now the ability to be able to dream together. Number 2, they now have language for it. They can say, you know what, when we are stuck, what skill do we need to overcome it? Now they're like, oh, let's touch the dream. That's a language. So
They're speaking the same
the
language
same
now.
speaking now, they're speaking the same language.
There's a unity there.
Yeah, because that's even when we started the women's school, they're like, oh, let's go to the man's school. So the man's school's learning anything in the women's school. And then it's like, let's get Espanol, let's get the teens. I think part of it is because the woman is a glue and she's in every part of a facet of society. But this was, just seeing that when they're aligned together, it's like miracles happen. And that's what we saw. Couples that were stuck and now are dreaming and casting a vision together. And then I think growing together. That's, when couples are, because they have to do their own homework and they have these guided questions and conversations that they would never know. They were like, we would never ask these questions. We
Yeah.
would never have these intentional conversations if we didn't have the guidance, and there's a metric, and they have to, ask themselves 0 to 10. What do you think is a lot of money? 0 to 10. How do you manage your mind? So now you're going about it in a very strategic way, as opposed to kind of like, well, this is as good as it gets. So that's what I see is a new sense of hope,
That's what we heard.
faith,
Yeah.
and love. It's really kind of, but what it is a renewed understanding of a life where you want to live it, and that you want to be able to wake up and someday, oh, I want that. We can have that. And I think it's possible. And I think it's possible when couples grow together. And that's what we saw. And it's really just inspiring,
And we really put together a great blend of like working on yourself and then coming together and doing some of the
work
the templates and work
to do together
as a
Yeah.
couple.
Neat. So you have an upcoming mastermind lunch. Will you give us some details about that?
Yes. So it is a 6 weeks mastermind, similar to what we did. And this was, that mastermind came about because women were asking. We just thought, I'll do it on the side. But it seems like there is a hunger for it. So it's a 6 weeks mastermind. You just jump right into you watch the class together. You do the homework together, which is where the magic really truly happens. And then you show up for the mastermind we meet with the couples and have that camaraderie and wrestle with some of the conversation. So you
just did 2 classes per month. So it's actually 2 masterminds per month for 3 months. So it's more than 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, sorry, not 6 weeks, 6 sessions.
So 6 sessions. It's over 3 months spread out, but it's just enough time, because we found like having a week to go through and do the exercises, and then the next week we meet, and then another week, so that it was great spacing for them to actually, and not very few of them got through all the material, and that's the thing, you'll have access to that class for life. You don't lose access to the materials in terms of studying, etc. So
but they're developing the habits of talking about these things, and they have like, this is what our date night material is for the next year or two. And so they have this, and it's great because then, it's like, okay, one of the testimonies were, it's not just going on a date for the sake of a date. It's like, wow, we are actually coming back from a date with a richer, meaningful conversation. It's like we're pushing the needle forward. And so that's beautiful. And even the couples, when they first did it, there were a lot of hard conversations, and it was like they were stuck. in the first 2 or 3 because you have to wrestle with
It's new.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's new, the language, and then they broke through. They pushed through, and so I think the beauty of it all, and I just think that we're deprived of it, Lucy, just because where do you go to learn skills as a couple, dream as a couple? And so couples right now that are listening, you know, where do you go? And even if you go to therapy, you can go unstuck, but you still need the skills.
Yeah.
We like babies.
And one other thing, because this is just fresh and just happened today. We had our mastermind today for our coaches, and one of the coaches that was in attendance at the cruise said she was just sharing her testimony to the other coaches, and it was amazing to hear what she had to say. But one of the things she said is like, we just got back and we just had this 3-4 days with each other. And I was telling my spouse, she said that I just wanted to get to another date, like to go back and get recentered and refocused now that we're back into the world, and pull it back to the exercise and things we learned, just to keep moving and growing
Yeah.
with those great new habits.
I mean, grow together for a year, you will see miracles. I think that's probably the secret ingredient to me and Ryan's marriage. You were like, you've got a great marriage. And I think that it's nothing, we have our own challenging conversations. I have a lot of work to do. We all have wounds, but we are willing to grow. And because we're growing and we're growing together, that is the game changer because we're not stuck. I feel like every time we get stuck, we're just saying, what other areas do we need to actually grow our skill set? And I think that's what makes it sweet. The alternative is to just stuck and die with this understanding that God designed your marriage to just sort of be this perpetual hell. And it's not the way God designed it.
Thank you so much. How beautiful and profound. I think from the outside, one other piece, growth is so beautiful. And I agree, when I'm growing, our marriage is better. When my husband is growing, our marriage is better. I think the other piece that ties really closely to it, that you two are amazing at, is ownership over blame, right? It's
Yeah.
always, what can I do?
Ryan's better at it than me, but yeah.
That's actually one of the parts of the class that we talked about is having to say sometimes with gritted teeth, as one of my mentors taught me one time, I am responsible, right? Like that you actually have to take ownership no matter what the situation is. Because and the reality is you can't control the other person. You can only control you and how you respond, and taking ownership of what you can change about the situation. So yeah, the ownership and the responsibility is critical.
But that's a skill in itself, because you need a script to know how to say that. You need to know what to say, but then you also need the right tonality and how to say it, which is a skill in itself. Because I could say, I'm responsible, I'm like, that doesn't sound responsible, so you also even need to say,
Yeah.
what does your facial expression look like? What does your tonality look like? What is your body language? So all that compounds together to be able to kind of show up in a way that inspires each other, even in the most challenging moments.
So they grew, I didn't mention this, but everyone kind of grew in awareness of how they
Mm.
are showing up in the thoughts that they're having. Because we literally have them, writing causes thinking. So we have them do a lot of exercises where they're getting out of their heads and onto paper. And so they're actually writing out those thoughts and becoming more self-aware. It's like, oh, I didn't even know I was doing that. We heard that so many times, like in our mastermind, which is very profound to see the impact of that.
Yeah. So
Last quick question.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
no, that's
Question. It sounds like more often it was the wife who wanted to pull the husband into the class. And I'm
Mhm.
curious what those husbands thought, what they were saying, or what their response was at the end.
Oh, they had to the coaches, we had to sell our husband, and even at one point one of the couples who had the most, I think, beautiful transformation almost pulled out of it. They're like, we can't afford it, it's not the right time, I don't want to do it, and they pushed through and just sold their husband and said we need to do it for each other. And all of the husbands were like, wow, you know, we didn't know what we didn't know. Now we know what they were going through in the women's school, and we see uh, the impact it is having in our marriage. But what was, I think, profound is that the husbands could not deny the transformation of their spouses in the women's school. So
Hmm.
that's what gave them sort of like kind of, okay, I will give it a shot because you're different. And all of them really just with flying colors saying, wow, like it's not just a retreat, it's really kind of deep interior work that yields you know, result that's not sort of, it's not motivational, because yeah, it motivates you, but you're doing this deep work. You're talking about your old wounds. What do you need to forgive each other for? What are the scripts in which, to speak to each other? So there's really, they are seeing the fruits of it right there in real time.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Thank you. So below this video here online and in the emails, I have a link where you can go and get more information, sign up and register. If someone feels like they need to have more of a conversation, I am happy to help a little bit, but I haven't been through the couples course myself. Is there anywhere else they can maybe reach out to if they feel like they need, like, hey, here's my situation. Is this really the best
Oh,
fit?
absolutely. Yeah. Anytime they can just email our team and we'll be happy to respond and answer any questions and see if it's a good fit. That's no problem.
Okay, so that would be admin@thewholenessschool.com. And there's 3 S's in a row in the wholeness school.
You need to
It took us
change
all
that.
a while to get used to that one.
Okay, admin at the
Admin,
wholeness school.
yep.
Okay. And we'll have all that in the notes too. January and Ryan, thank you so much for your time, for your witness, for your work, and for leading us all and leading the charge. May God bless you
For
very
your
much.
openness and for humility and really for your example of growth, Lucy, and for your hunger towards in pursuit of a life of excellence. And so, it's women like you who keep fighting and fighting right alongside this work that makes this work worth it for me, worth it for us. And so we need each other, and we need every woman on board, and we need every couple on board, and that's how we change the world. So thank you for being, doing your part in rebuilding culture. I don't take that lightly.
Thank you. It has been such a tremendous honor.
Thank you, Lucy. All right. Take care.